Okay, and welcome to joining us today on the Remove Success Story with Jef Sawyerr. And today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about like Jeff's experience within the Prostate Cancer Researchers program, which is called Remove, and this is for men who have prostate cancer or recovering from it, or have just been diagnosed with it. So before we get on to that, Jef, I'd just like you to introduce you. Jef, if you could just introduce yourself, who you are and where you're from and what you do, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Jef Sawyerr. Who am I? That's me. Where am I from? I suppose I'm a London boy, really. My kind of family stems from Nigeria and the Caribbean, Barbados, more specifically. What I do, I work in health and worked in health for a long time. That's me.
That's it. Because you're currently you work as in a hospital, don't you? Is that right?
No, I actually work in a community setting.
Okay.
And yeah, I have done for a long time. Kind of health visitor type setting.
Nice. Okay, nice. So for anyone else that's watching as well, like if anyone does have any questions that they would like to ask, like myself or Jef, about anything that we're discussing today, please just put them in the comments, and we'll be able to answer them, and we'll do the best we can, or if not, we'll point you in the right direction of someone that can. So Jef, you're part of the Remove program.
I am.
So if we could just go back before you even thought about that, you're in the program because of your connection with prostate cancer. So when were you first diagnosed with prostate cancer, Jef? And how did you find out?
I was diagnosed at the beginning of this year. Diagnosed primarily because I'd requested a PSA test, and the number came back quite high, and went on to have an exploratory scan and then a biopsy, which was I think that's kind of the standard process, really. I suppose what led me to that point was post-COVID. I was very aware that I hadn't had a check because I was being checked for my PSA before COVID had started in, 2020, I think it was, 2019, 2020. And there was a huge gap kind of between pre-COVID stuff and when I found myself in January. And I knew that I needed to be monitored because my PSA had been up and down prior to COVID. I think that was probably more likely to do with infection, i.e. I had a renal infection a few years ago and the PSA started going up and down. And so it was recommended that I was monitored, and I was being monitored, but there was that gap during COVID. And then post-COVID, as I say, found that it started to creep up, and the decision was made that we needed to explore it a little bit further. And primarily because I know that black men are more likely, particularly at my age, to develop prostate cancer. And I just wanted to kind of be aware of that and just to keep an eye on that, really, so that I could kind of respond to it really early.
That's it, and that's really good. Like there's a lot of men, they don't want to go there, do they? Because it's like, oh, your prostate, and they don't want to get checked and all that, and they don't want to have that conversation. But it was good that you actually you were pushing for that test, and just
it wasn't offered to me automatically, so it's something that I did have to kind of push for. But you're right, because it's a really kind of, I say, personal issue. And I remember saying to you when we first met ages ago that it was hard to discuss because it was personal, and your response was, all cancer's personal. And that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And so I've had to do a little bit of soul searching around, okay, how much of myself do I want to kind of discuss with professionals, as it were? And that's not always an easy decision.
No. Yeah. So it's not. So you got diagnosed start of 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you would go back to then, okay. Now, how did you feel like at the time? Like not like mentally or emotionally, but at the time, how did you feel physically?
To be quite frank with you, I've not had any specific symptoms as a result of my diagnosis. As an older man, I experience things like weeing more frequently, and put that down to, as lots of people do, put it down to age. But there was nothing specific. There was no pain. I wasn't feeling particularly unwell in any way, shape, or form. It was just purely the figures on the PSA that took me, that made me think, okay, I need to do something about this. And then having a conversation with the GP initially, who was a bit concerned, and then my kind of first appointments with the urologist, who then referred me to oncology.
Because this is the thing, and this has come up in some of the group calls. That's when when some of the gentlemen have been diagnosed, they're like, but I feel fine. I don't feel unwell. I feel fit. I feel, like for some of them, I feel healthy.
Yeah.
It's not something.
Go for it.
No, go on.
I was going to say there were no physical symptoms at all, and I suppose what's kind of running around in my head is that feeling of disbelief. Really, I feel perfectly fine, but you're telling me that I've got something that is potentially life-threatening. So just trying to kind of resolve those contradictions was really difficult, to try and kind of believe the diagnosis and to believe that I needed to start on a course of therapy that would put things right, hopefully.
Yeah, that's it. So speaking of your therapy, like what route did you take?
It was a question of trying to kind of consider the kind of vast array of things that were out there, thinking about surgery, thinking about chemotherapy, thinking about hormone therapy, thinking about radiotherapy. Because the first thing I did when they started talking about treatment was got all the books out, got on the internet. And because I work in health, going to all the kind of evidence-based websites I could find, and the kind of big teaching hospitals, some of whom have a series of health-related videos for people diagnosed with particular illnesses. And I found that quite useful, actually. So it helped me think about what path I felt was appropriate for me, what I was prepared to do. And in kind of researching the various options, I was primarily looking at not just the advantages, but the disadvantages. And what I kind of found was that any branch I took, there were going to be some longer term consequences that I would have to either work to resolve or decide I was going to live with. And it just kind of felt really serious, to be honest with you. And it was difficult kind of making the decision, but
it is a serious decision, though, isn't it? Like, let's not beat around the bush. It is a serious decision, isn't it?
Totally. It's I suppose what I would call a vital time. It's crunch time. These are decisions that are going to reverberate into the future, really, and will impact on what the future looks like. So that felt quite serious to me. It was difficult making the decision. The first people I spoke to were my siblings, really, because we share things at quite a deep level, which is great. And it was really just sharing the information with them was part of the process of me kind of coming to the decision of kind of what treatment I would be prepared to go down.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, completely.
Yeah.
So when did you start your treatment?
It was a bit of a wait, actually. If I recall rightly, I was diagnosed in January. My treatment started probably about 6 weeks after that, and it started with a course of hormone therapy. I made the decision that I didn't want to have surgery in the first instance, and I would look at what other treatments there were. And so what was recommended was hormone therapy, followed by radiotherapy. And because prostate cancer was, I suppose, in a sense, hormone driven, the hormone therapy was designed to essentially chemically castrate me to shut off my testosterone, because that's what was feeding the prostate cancer. And I understood that in my head, and it seemed quite a straightforward thing to do: starve the cancer and resolve the problem. But what I hadn't bargained for was the fact that, you know, my body has become accustomed to testosterone over 60 years or so, and withdrawing that had quite an impact. It actually fundamentally changed who I was, what I was able to do, and it saps very kind of basic things like energy, getting out of bed in the morning. I used to be able to spring out of bed on hormone therapy. Getting out of bed was a major act of willpower, and that varied from day to day. Just being myself, really. I mean, I tend to be quite an optimistic. I wouldn't consider myself to be driven, but purposeful. I refer to it as drive, really, and it's that kind of ability to kind of just get up and go, and that oomph just disappeared. Things like my libido, that kind of, you know, the kind of sexual part of yourself, that all disappeared, and I was so struck by that. Yeah, my very kind of identity of being a man was chemically altered.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an emotional man anyway, but add on top of that, taking away the testosterone, just a kind of quivering wreck, really. And my kind of mood was up and down, a lot more down than up, and that's not like me. I'm not like that. I'm essentially an optimist, really.
Yes.
And so it kind of flattened all of that. And for me, one of the major symptoms, and it's not the same for everybody. Everybody's journey, even on the same treatment, is different. For me, things like hot flushes were incredibly debilitating. So I'd get kind of 20 hot flushes a day. They would kind of run into the night as well. So I was having massive night sweats. So broken sleep, feeling really tired, demotivated. And I felt more ill on the medication, on the treatment, and didn't feel ill because of the disease, really. Yeah. So that kind of feels quite odd. And even to now, I mean, I'm not on the hormone therapy anymore, but it's going to take a while for my testosterone levels to get back to where they need to be.
To get back to some sort of normality, right?
Yeah. So I'm still getting hot flushes from time to time, but nowhere near as bad as they were when I was having active treatment. But I knew it was all for a good purpose. And there are things that, you kind of balance out because of that.
That's it.
And having spoken to other people who've been on similar therapy, some people have had it far more extreme, far more severely than I have. And other people have, it's not impacted on as much. So in some ways, I was feeling a little bit kind of fraudulent because, my symptoms, comparatively speaking, were minor, but, they were significant to me.
That's it. Exactly. And, we don't need to go down that conversation of being a fraud and all of that, because we do that in the groups, don't we? So that's the thing, right? Everyone in the program is there with that one thing in common.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, that's it. So you found out about, well, first of all, how did you find out about the Remove program?
It was because, I mean, I like to think of it as not professional curiosity, but personal curiosity. And so I was kind of trying to gather as much information about prostate cancer as I possibly could. So I came across Prostate Cancer UK, and just kind of scrolling around on the website, really. And I saw, I think it was a notification for a group. And because I was feeling so kind of flat and totally inactive, I latched onto the Remove part of it to start kind of energizing myself again, as it were. And I mean, I tend to be somebody who kind of just goes off and does stuff on my own anyway. But that hasn't worked for me from a fitness point of view. And And so I thought, let's change the tack because I've not been well, and because what I have done previously hasn't been particularly successful long term. Let's try another way. Let's try joining a group. Maybe I can't do it all on my own, you know.
That's it.
So that was the impetus really, and I was just curious, and of course it was an opportunity to have a supported health recovery program. And I think one of my first questions really was, how much does it cost? And what was really an incentive was, it doesn't cost anything, so let's go for it. So I thought, why not? What have I got to lose other than weight?
That's it. So you were there. Now, now you've been in the program for quite a while now. Like, how for you? Like, how are you finding the program?
How do I find the program? I've got many thoughts on it because I'm as we kind of run our groups and as we go through, the thoughts do pop up. I found the group overall really instructive, really supportive. I genuinely appreciate your expertise around fitness, but I also like, I suppose I feed off the kind of optimistic, positive drive towards recovering health. And there's also something about accountability to a group that I've not really experienced before. And I think, again, there are so many messages that I've taken from my experience of the group that carry me forward. Things like willpower in itself isn't enough. Motivation is great as a starting point, but it's not enough to get you to the destination. And so constantly kind of recommitting, constantly revisiting, being accountable, working within a framework, I find really, really helpful personally. But also, you know, there's this kind of that social tug, that sort of social cohesive stuff that pulls you along as well. And that's the bit about being in the group that's really important. You know, when I joined the group, there were kind of like familiar faces. And it's those faces that I feel, I suppose, an affiliation with. Listening to other people's stories, hearing other people's journeys, all of that helps to kind of carry me on and carry me forward, and bring me back week after week too.
That's it. Because even though it's online, you build these bonds with people, these connections, don't you?
That's really important. I think that's really important.
Yeah. It's like the other week, wasn't it? You know, Michael, he hadn't been there for a few weeks, and then you know, you were all like, "Oh, is Michael all right? Is Michael all right?" You know, you were all looking out for, you know, you was all looking out for him, and then you know, when he did come back, he was like, "Oh yeah, I was just busy," you know, and you were like, "Oh, yeah." But it's nice though, isn't it? It's nice.
It's nice, and I think what it means is there are two things really. Number one, you become aware of other people's struggles as well, and it's about paying attention and being concerned about them. But also, what it does is it takes you out of yourself. Certainly for me, and I found the best way to manage the challenge of having a diagnosis and being in the position that I am is to think about other people. It also fills me with outrage, really, because prostate cancer, in my view, is not something that's talked enough about. It's so common, and yet people are being diagnosed by accident almost, and being diagnosed quite late with quite advanced disease. And so just hearing other people's stories and listening to other people's experience kind of filled me with an indignancy, an outrage. And I just think that people's voices need to be heard. Men's voices need to be heard, and men need to speak to each other about prostate cancer. I said earlier on that I spoke to my siblings. The first thing I actually did was let my kids know, because I've got 3 boys and a daughter, and I just wanted them to be able to kind of take the information out into their lives and to think about it. And so that felt to me very important, and it still does. And that's one of the reasons I'm speaking to you today as well, because I just think people need to hear voices and people need to see people who it affects. The other person I told was my mother, who lives, thousands of miles away. She being very concerned, and she talks about it also. I just think it's so important.
Yes. Like we've spoken about this lots of times, haven't we?
Yeah.
On the group calls, and it is it's starting to get out there now, which is really, really good. And we can do whatever we can do to spread that message, which is
Absolutely,
again,
totally.
so, I'm always grateful for you guys coming on. So I really, really am.
Mm.
So Jef, talk to me. What you're in the program. You've spoken about what it's like being in the program, the Remove program. Well, let's talk about what have you achieved?
What have I
from
achieved?
the program, apart from being told off from your doctors?
What have I achieved?
Yeah.
There's a certain kind of confidence that comes from the program, because when I started, I wasn't doing very much at all. You see me this morning having come back from a short walk, 4,000 steps. I'm probably, or not probably, I will definitely go out again and count my steps when I finish this, so that I can clock up at least 10,000 steps today. And the last meeting I was talking about, okay, what now in terms of physical activity? Because walking is my thing. I love to walk. My plans are to eventually get back to things like long walks, i.e. hiking, and stuff like that. I'm not quite there yet. Thinking about going to the gym and what have you, and that's great, but haven't quite got there yet. But what have I gained? It's that's it. I'm active again, which is what I wanted, and that was one of my stated goals at the beginning when we do kind of baseline assessments. What do you want to achieve? Who's the man you want to meet when you've finished? That sort of thing. And so I just wanted to be more active. I wasn't specific about lifting weights in the gym or any of those things. I just wanted to be more active than I am. So I kind of think I've got that. And it was also kind of getting a handle around things like nutrition. Because I work in health, I think I know everything, and I don't. And I've got kind of particular views around food. And I just wanted to be challenged about that. And I think that you have challenged me. Because for me, any quick fix would work. And what we know about quick fixes is quick fix, kind of quick back to where you were before, basically.
Yes.
And so it was taking a root and branch, kind of long-term view of what balanced nutrition looks like. Just becoming more aware of it. At the beginning of the program, one of the things that you made us do that I was really resistant to was things like take photographs of what you're eating and post them online. Partly that's accountability, but it really does make you aware of everything you're putting in your mouth, basically. A dietitian would probably say keep a food diary, and you can kind of cheat on that, and there's no kind of indelible record really. But when you're photographing your food, it does something to you, I think.
That's it.
Every single morsel. And it was something that I would reflect on, and I still do. And it was something that would return to me when I was doing things like shopping and thinking about nutritional values, thinking about calorie counts, thinking about whole foods, basically, staying away from kind of refined produce, and just thinking about balancing all of that out, being much more aware of eating, thinking about breakfast, which for 30 years I never had, thinking about a lunchtime meal rather than going home and binging in the evening, which is what I was doing before. So it's not just thinking about the content of food, but it's thinking about the timing of it, spreading it out, just being very aware and trying to kind of intersperse bits of activity in that. Now, for me, one of the kind of important things about the program was not just the kind of health drive, but taking into account the kind of impact of things like the hormone therapy, the radiotherapy, because after hormone therapy, I had radiotherapy. And whilst that wasn't particularly intrusive, it was quite debilitating, quite tired. And it was a course of 20 sessions, consecutive sessions over 4 weeks. to and from the hospital, and trying to kind of maintain health and activity during that was a little bit of a challenge, but the program was able to kind of slow down to meet my needs. And that's the thing about the program, it kind of tailors itself to what you need it to be. And that's good. To the extent that, when I first looked at things like the video content, so examples of exercises, etc., that you put up, I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to achieve that. But what you did was you tailored it. And I started talking about things like, armchair yoga and chair aerobics and things like that. So you've kind of, kind of adapted, and that meets
you where you're at.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
The thing, right?
I was going to say, people's changing energy needs. Yeah,
exactly. I like to think of it like, like you all have the same picture, the same outlines.
Yeah.
But you can color it in however you like.
Yep.
and that's what it is, Like,
and I don't stay within the lines, as it were, but that's
none
okay.
of us do. None of us do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And the major thing that I've achieved really is weight loss, basically. And it's been slow and steady, but it's fine, and it's where I want to be.
That's the thing, right? And also, it is fine being slow and steady, because that's what gets the long-term results, is being slow and steady.
Yep.
Indeed. Yeah, and that's what it is. We're not looking for you to drop loads of weight really quickly. For some people, yes, it happens, but it's all about the long term. It's like, well, where's your health going to be in a year's time, Jeff? Is the work that you're doing in the Remove program going to be sustainable, and the habits that you've learned going to be sustainable for you?
That's the thing. That's what, that's what we're all about, is the sustainability. I suppose the thing I've learned is not to diet, because when you go on a diet, you have to come off it. And that's not sustainable, because you tend to revert to where you were before.
That's it.
For me, it's a kind of lifestyle thing, really. Yeah. And it is incorporating not just the nutritional aspects, but it is the activity. But the other thing about the program really is I suppose that kind of the reflection and awareness raising component too. Thinking about goals, thinking about what it is that you want, thinking about what motivates you and what drives you. All of those things really kind of reinforce sustainability. And also, having had a huge identity knock because of the diagnosis, I think one of my kind of existential questions was, who am I now? And so the program has given me some support, some help in kind of reframing myself and going forward. And that's been really important. And I think certainly during the sessions and listening to kind of people's experience, I think to myself, I'm not going to be able to see all the way to the end, particularly with things like treatment, etc. But you can see now, and you can make decisions and revisit decisions and revisit motivations for now and keep going in the right direction. So for me, that's the kind of important bit.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're pleased with what you're achieving in the program?
I'm very pleased. And that brings me back week after week after week. And the other thing that brings me back is the investment in other people as well. People's experiences up and down. I see people facing challenges. I see people struggling with challenge. That, I suppose, it motivate sounds wrong. It keeps me committed because I'm invested in people doing the best that they can and people being as well as they can, myself included. Yeah. We band of brothers, as it were.
That's it. And the groups are good. Good. You all support each other, and it's really, really good to see. It is really, really good to see.
It makes me think about what else needs to happen. It makes me think about all of those people that don't have support. It makes me think about the kind of very basics of what makes us who we are, really. And I suppose on the back of COVID, joining a group was very important. And it is about social cohesion. It is about, rather than isolation, rather than I can't even remember what the phrase was now, but that kind of social isolation stuff. It's about what makes us as people, really, and it's about community.
Yeah, that's it.
And we tend to be more alike than we are different anyway. So,
100%. That's it. So, if someone's watching this that is that they've come across the Remove program, but they're not, they're like, yeah, but I'm not sure it's for me, or they're sure, but they're on the fence. Without just saying, just do it. What would you say to that person? What piece of advice would you give that person that's considering it?
First question is, what have you got to lose? Second question is, what have you got to gain? I think something like a diagnosis, I suppose the impact it had on me was the sense that I've got this kind of vision of being on a raft and having the diagnosis, and this strong undercurrent pulling me out to sea, getting further and further away from what I know, from what is solid. And I suppose my advice would be reach out, because that's the way in which you bring yourself back to a solid place. That's the advice I would give, really. Reach out. Sometimes it can feel like a huge and courageous decision. Sometimes, if you're a particularly social person, it's fine, just reach out, and that's easy to do. But I think the diagnosis brings an isolation with it. And I think the way to combat that isolation is to reach out. Reach out for whatever you can as a life raft. And for me, the program is a bit of a life raft in that sense. And it pulls you back. You can fight the current with the support that you get, with the framework of the program, with the very content, the kind of material in the program. It helps you to meet the person who you are post-diagnosis. So that's the advice, really.
Nice. Reach out.
Yeah.
That's it. So, nice.
Really important.
It is really, really important. Really important. Because it can be lonely. It can be lonely when you get that diagnosis, because especially like if you've got loved ones around you and you don't want to burden them, for a lot of people, it can be a very, very lonely place.
It's really interesting you say that, because I was acutely aware of the impact my diagnosis had on my family. And I could see how worried and scared they were. And that, for me, was quite isolating, because I didn't want to add to that. So I did keep a lot of things to myself. And I think the group is a space, and the safety in the group has grown over the time that it's existed. But I think it also grows with the new people who arrive. And I hope it's a space where people feel comfortable enough to discuss things that are important. I know that some people have kind of battled with disappointments in treatment, failure of therapies, etc., within the group. And I think the group is safe enough to kind of hold that and to contain that.
Hold that space. That's it. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Jef, I just want to say, for me, thank you. Not only for spending your time today coming on and doing this video, but also having that presence in the group and holding that space as well. Like, you really are a good character to have in the group.
Thank you.
Everyone can say thank you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for being honest and open as well.
Well, thank you for your leadership of the group as well, because you hold that too. So that's really kind of important. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. So for anyone that is watching and would like to know more about prostate cancer, then please visit www.prostate-cancer-research.org.uk, where you can find out a lot more about prostate cancer, find out about a lot more of the research that they're doing in the UK, and also find out a lot more about the screening program, which they are definitely pushing for men in the UK as well, which is really, really important.
Oh, I would so support that. Absolutely.
That's it. So again, Jef, thank you for taking the time today.
My complete and utter pleasure.
And you're doing really, really well, and just keep moving forwards.
Excellent. Thank you.